Video games have become one of our nation's largest industries. AAA blockbuster games sometimes outsell the movie industry's biggest hits, and websites like Facebook.com have turned people who are traditionally not gamers into social gamers, with titles like the popular Farmville. The role-playing genre has been at the forefront of the game industries since its inception. Many people demonize role-playing games as the pastime of geeks and nerds without understanding what a role-playing game truly involves. The design of a role-playing game is all about removing the player from the physical world and stepping into the shoes of a virtual adventurer. I will give you a guided tour of what makes the genre so popular to so many people. Let's begin at the start of the adventure. The character creation screen. This is the definition of what a role-playing game is. To be the player and take on the persona of someone that lives in the virtual world. And this all begins with the creation of a character that the players will use to represent them. This screen gives the player many choices about who their character will be, what they will look like inside the game. These choices may include the sex of the player, male or female, race, because many role-playing games are set in fantasy worlds or science fiction worlds where humans are among many intelligent species. And customization can go as far as facial appearance, body weight, and even the hairstyle. The second major choice that players will face are known as specializations. Specializations are the types of things that your character may excel at. These can include aspects like farming, or flying, or even holding conversations. The type of specializations that are available will change based on the type of worlds that the game is set in. Finally, players will be asked to give a name to their character. By having the player provide the name to the role-playing genre better incorporates them into the story. Hearing the name that the player chose themselves often will lead the player to feel more a part of the story. Like many forms of entertainment, role-playing games are all about telling a story. While the genre of role-playing games is often associated with medieval fantasy, there are actually many subgenres that are included in the massive genre. The first is medieval fantasy, probably the most widely experienced in the genre. It sets players into the role of a brawny fighter or a crafty wizard, often trying to fight off hordes of monsters. The second is the sci-fi epic. These genres take place in the middle of nowhere, kind of like taking a page out of Star Trek's book, and they guide players through the vastness of space. Players will often visit different worlds and interact with different alien species. We also have superhero adventures. Like the comic books that inspired them, these games place the player in the role of a man or a woman gifted with unique abilities to save humanity from the dreaded supervillains. And lastly, we have the real-world role-playing games. Games like Roller Coaster Tycoon. They're games that put the player in the role of perhaps an enterprising business executive. There is no evil empire to defeat, no demons to slay. It's simply a simulation of what someone in a position like that might experience on a day-to-day basis. Now that we have our character and our setting, we will see how progression works. Progression is basically considered the level-up system. Role-playing games award players for doing things in games, and that makes their player more powerful. For example, in a fantasy game, you may have to kill a certain number of monsters, and you will be granted a new spell. A sci-fi game might require you to visit a certain number of cultures to learn how to speak in different languages. In role-playing games, the player is rewarded not for finishing the game or watching the story. They're rewarded for taking part in the universe that they have entered. The level-up system is a key aspect to understand the role-playing genre as a whole. Role-playing games have long existed before games were mainstream for many people. They offer an escape or a vacation for the monotony of their daily lives. The games offer the player choices about how to interact with the world. There is a set of compelling stories, and rewards simply for living inside the game world. Now that you know the major aspects of the role-playing genre, you will be able to start your own adventures.